Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. The program is Everything Co-op. Welcome this morning. We have Mr. William Spriggs on the line with us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Spriggs. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm wonderful. Thank you, Vernon. And yourself?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you are on. Glad you made it. Now, how big is Bermuda?
Well, we're 20 square miles. The island is shaped like a fish hook. We're talking 65,000 people. So, 9 parishes, St. George's, Hamilton, Smiths, Devonshire. I'm going from the east going west, Pembroke, Paget, close to Hamilton. That's the heart of the city with a cruise boat dock, and our front streets are our city harbor is right in Hamilton. And then going westward, that's Paget, Warwick, Southampton, and Sands Parish. Yeah, so not big at all, but, big enough for a lot of action and, certainly a thriving economy in the middle of the Atlantic.
And from the U.S., I go due east from where?
Yeah, we're talking 600 miles or so off the coast of North Carolina. Yeah. So, we're talking Bermuda, New York, 2 hours, Bermuda, Atlanta, 2 hours and a bit. Yeah. Just a short hop.
So you got 65,000 people.
Absolutely, yeah. Racially, we're probably talking about a good 55-60% black, 30% white, and then I guess the balance would kind of fall into a mixed Asian and whatnot. Yeah, so we're pretty joined up here and whatnot, and major economies would be tourism, obviously, but that's been overtaken by international business, financial markets and whatnot. So we have a great deal of expatriates here, working in the financial services sector, and certainly, that's those two economies would be our, and they would say like the third economy, would almost be our nonprofit charity sector. Yeah.
Okay. And how did blacks get to Bermuda?
That's an interesting question. We are a British territory and whatnot, and that's more of a historical discussion, so to speak. But a huge influx from the Caribbean and all sorts of other U.S. avenues that I really don't want to go down that road in terms of dates and times and all those types of things there. Yeah.
But did you have slavery in Bermuda, or did folks just leave slavery and come to Bermuda?
Yeah, that's a good question. The whole kind of, indentured servants and whatnot, I guess if we go back to, the 1600s, absolutely. But, but we do have our holidays in regards to celebrating emancipation and all sorts of celebrations on that like.
Okay. The reason I wanted to start, I want to get a sense, both for me and the viewers, where Bermuda is. And I like your shape of the fish hook of 65,000 people, 20 square miles. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know it was 55% black. I didn't know it was that high. Yeah,
55 to 60 or so. Uh-huh.
Okay. And what's your government structure?
Yeah, so, we have two major governments at the moment, the Progressive Labour Party, they're in power now, and the One Bermuda Alliance, the OBA. And any ruling government would stay in for 4 years, and then there's a new election or so. Britain has pretty much sends a governor the governor's here until a new governor is minted. The other one, the current governor is moved on and whatnot. So it's really a figurehead, so to speak, and the government would have the powers, the general powers over police in conjunction with the government ministers. And so the ministers are, pretty much have the authority to be able to pretty much manage their departments under them. So we're talking, security, policing, judicial, community services, immigration, and the like. And so that's pretty much our structure and whatnot in regards to a figurehead governor, minted by Britain, but the ruling party would pretty much, be in power until they are ruled out, or just continue every 4 years.
Okay. And so, which one of those departments do you work under?
Yeah, I'm with the Ministry of Economic Development, and so our department is the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation. And we've morphed from, our previous name was Bermuda Small Business Development. And so we pretty much grew up to be able to handle the mandate of medium-sized business. So small businesses, pretty much sales under $1 million, under 10 employees, owner managed, not dominant in the industry, payroll tax under $250,000 so a year. That loose criteria, and a medium-sized business is over $1 million to sales up to, say, $5 million or so. And so we kind of do the whole show for, small and medium-sized business. We manage the vendor markets on the island. We also manage 3 economic empowerment zones. We have financial instruments that support small and medium-sized business. We do loan guarantees. That's our pretty much staple product. We can guarantee up to 65% of a loan. Our maximum guarantee is $200,000. We also do microloans, debt consolidation loans, sports loans, for sports clubs. We have various concessions within those economic empowerment zones to be able to incentivize and to be able to motivate businesses to be able to come into the zones, customs duty deferrals, payroll tax subsidies and things like that. Mm-hmm. We've got a small team, 10, 12 people, and we do a great work. We have a Global Entrepreneurship Month in November. The kind of U.S.-wide, it's for 1 week. But we get a little greedy here and do a whole month of activities and kind of burn ourselves out and whatnot. So we're just finishing up that, up now, and all sorts of partnerships with all sorts of great, partnering entities that that we join and certainly do all sorts of wonderful events and seminars and learning experiences for Bermudians.
So the Minister of Economic Development, is that the person that said they wanted to create co-ops in Bermuda?
Well, that's the government, the whole kind of, Progressive Labour Party platform, the desire to be able to, create and grow crops was part of their platform. So I wouldn't say it was any one particular minister. The minister, the quote-unquote minister now of our department has just changed, is the premier. So the premier of Bermuda, the Honorable David Burt, is so our department kind of falls up under his particular remit at the moment. And that was kind of late last year. The PLP introduced their mandate for co-ops, and it just kind of naturally fell within our department, the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation, to be able to deliver on that. And we've been doing that ever since in terms of the research and all that.
What is the mandate?
The mandate is to be able to develop the cooperative infrastructure and foundation for cooperatives to thrive. So that's looking at, what does it take to be able to, what are the pylons in the ground? What's the concrete to allow cooperatives to be able to kind of build strong structures to be able to grow. And so as a part of that, obviously it's legislation. So looking at our current legislation on the books and what needs to be changed or what new legislation needs to be minted. And so, kind of to that end, we've looked at various legislations, just tons of stuff out there. And what I was, slightly surprised about that there's, virtually no warehouse that a new cooperative developer, and perhaps there is, and I just don't know about it because I'm very green. So, to all the listening audience, just to be able to kind of cut in just quickly on this question, Brennan, is that we have no co-ops in the island. We have no infrastructure. We have one Bermuda Credit Union. Obviously, they have an act unto themselves. And so we have kind of virgin territory to be able to grow co-ops. And so to that end, for someone like myself and our department to say, hey, what's best practice legislation out there that gives a new ecosystem the widest range to develop a diverse range of co-ops, not just worker co-ops. Where can I go? So we've looked at Wisconsin, and I've kind of been up there to the Cooperative Works and Alex Stone and all the great people up there, and being able to look at other, U.S. states that have more robust legislation. So we've looked at that, and so that's just kind of one big branch on the tree in terms of the foundation and infrastructure. Another one would be, certainly, the educational campaign, and that's kind of what we're in now. It's just, really kind of rolling out some just great, solid knowledge, for Bermudians. What is a co-op? How do I get started? Is a co-op for me? The types of co-ops, things like that. And so we started that, earlier this month, just by having in Dr. Julian Manley from the UK with the Preston model. We can talk more about him in a minute. And so, legislation, training and development, and looking at, certainly kind of just working with where Bermudians are at. I mean, cooperative economics may be a new term for many Bermudians, but cooperating economically is not. Mm-hmm. And so we have many lodges and friendly societies, many, minted and have really kind of been transferred from Britain, early 1800s. Okay. The Prince Albert Lodge and, all these lodge names that were really kind of, set up as sister lodges to their, their connections in Britain.
Well, we have to take a break.
Oh, sure.
And we'll be right back.
Fantastic.
So we'll take a break, and please don't touch that dial. We'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about the principles and a little bit more about the structure you're talking about.
WOL Washington, W240DJ Washington 95.9, WPRS HD2 Waldorf, WKYS HD2 Washington, WMMJ HD2 Bethesda, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. The program is Everything Cooperative, and we have Mr. William Spriggs on the line with us. He's from Bermuda. He is in charge of looking at ways of creating co-ops on the island. We've established that Bermuda is 65,000 people. It's about 20 by 20 square miles. And 65% black, 30% white, and the balance is other. And they have only one co-op on the island right now, and that's a credit union. In the first segment, we talked about the different types of co-ops, whether they're consumer co-ops or worker cooperatives, and credit unions are a consumer co-op, or if they're purchasing co-ops or marketing co-ops. So we talked about them, and he's looking at ways of creating an ecosystem, a system where the co-ops can strive and survive. So you were talking about you came to Wisconsin, you looking at from England from standpoint?
Yeah, no, I was answering your question. Let me just bring it to a close in regards to what is the BDIC charged with in regards to cooperative development. I was talking, and I had mentioned about legislation, and I talked about Wisconsin, and certainly my cooperative development training up there, and looking at, they've got from what I understand, a fairly robust, legislative framework up there in other states and whatnot. And then I talked about, I was talking about our educational campaign, which we're kind of in now. I can talk about that a little later if you like. And then a third huge piece is our partnering, and that's a key element there, to be able to kind of brand ourselves as a living experiment that is tapping into best practice worldwide, and certainly engaging cooperative ecosystem practitioners and developers, people who are doing it, people who have are a part of their communities and can speak to 5-10 years success or more. That hey, these are lessons we've learned. Here's how we're doing it. These are the worker cooperatives, or all the types of cooperatives that are in place, and they have a real success story to tell. And so, we're engaging them on a number of fronts to be able to kind of partner, and so that the world, looking at Bermuda, even though we're very much in our infancy now, very early, as I mentioned, can, even though we're early, and you can get something from Bermuda about how we're engaging these ecosystem developers and how we're creating innovative practices and programs and projects around cooperative development as far as our educational campaigns, and so that and everything's being measured, all the metrics in place, and so that our living experiment is able to be exported, so that we can engage in the UK and say, well, look, it's not just about Bermuda. Funding-wise, here's why it makes sense to be able to invest in Bermuda, be a part of our cooperative ecosystem development, because this is something that is exportable to the rest of the Caribbean, especially the British Overseas Territories. And, and so we want to be able to kind of be on stage in 3, 4, 5 years and be able to say, hey, here's how we did it. Here's how we learned from the best and the brightest out there. Here's how here's how we looked at and we tapped into these great ecosystems in Cincinnati and Preston and wherever else it makes sense. And here's how we adapted what we learned. Here's how we kind of morphed what we understood and made it Bermuda.
All right. Now, tell me about the training you're doing, because the fifth principle is that cooperatives provide education and training for their members, elected representatives, management, employees, and the whole populace. So,
yeah, we're not there yet in regards to the training inwardly into the inward co-op workers and owners and all that. We're really kind of educating a country, a nation here in Bermuda, to be able to kind of understand really what a co-op is. And so we had our first educational experience, and I like the word experience because events just seem so singular and kind of one track. And what I shared at our first event with Dr. Julian Manley is that these experiences, our time together over 2.5, 3 hours, can be life and business changing. And so that's an experience to me. And so we had Dr. Julian Manley in from the UK to do a November 20, learning sharing, and we dubbed it an evening with Dr. Julian Manley. And so we did up a nice little kind of, learning booklet for him, and that's being put up on our website as we speak. And, it was titled The Preston Economic Model, Social Dreaming, and the Cooperative Community. So he had a fantastic presentation, talked, certainly some of the elements that they kind of borrowed from the Cleveland model, and certainly touched all on Mondragon, because he used to work there back in the day and whatnot, and just, as far as the videos and all the PowerPoint that he did was just fantastic. And then he moved into his Preston model and really hit that hard in regards to, the anchor institutions being able to create new dialogue and contracts with them to be able to turn their economic spigots that were previously positioned outside the community after all the data and research and how they were all able to work together to be able to kind of invest and fund in a greater way within Preston. And certainly their 5-year continuing success story. And the audience received that, in a very enthusiastic manner. Lots of questions went over. He was going to touch on his social dreaming and do a public session with that. We didn't even kind of get to that. We cut that short and just really kind of work with the energy in the room because, the audience, attendees just wanted more of him in regards to the great dynamic with the Q&A. So that was a whole great mix. The premier came, and as well as about a good 4 or 5 ministers in his cabinet came, attended the event.
Fantastic.
Yeah, had some great photo ops and whatnot, and had some great conversation. And we're going to get him back to be able to do a bit more with us. So, and certainly, Dr. Manley and his university, University of North Lancashire and Preston, being able to engage them. They got research. Every university has a research arms, and they have graduate students and doctoral students and whatnot that are looking for interesting projects to be able to kind of bite into, wrap their hands around and whatnot. And so wherever we can kind of, create these MOUs to be able to partner with great people and, certainly institutions like Dr. Manley's universities, we're all about that. And I just want to be able to speak to our, just say a quick little thing to our listening audiences, is that if you, or, if you yourself, or certainly your institution that you're a part of, if you feel that you can offer Bermuda something. If you can create a value proposition with us, just say, hey, you guys on a very ground level where we're at now, we're willing to talk to you. We want to be able to dialogue around how can we create great partnerships to be able to grow Bermuda into what we know it can be.
Sounds fantastic. And Julian Manny, I just looked him up on the Preston model, so
yep.
I'm going to do a little bit more research on that in University of Central Lancashire.
Yeah, Lancashire, huh?
Because a lot of this cooperative models, particularly the cooperative principles, came out of Europe. Frederick Douglass was a slave in Maryland, and he stole off and went to Europe, and the folks over there helped him to get work, and they also gave him money, so he bought his freedom and came back a freed man. And that's why he could be an orator in the 1850s and 60s, because of the work of the cooperators in England. So it's a great history between African Americans, blacks, and this co-op model, and why. But so I guess that gets to my question of why you guys want to do this co-op thing.
Well.
What's the ultimate benefit?
Yeah. Well, the brief history, just to be able to answer your question, what's the ultimate benefit, is the Progressive Labor Party, the PLP, the ruling government, certainly with their linkages, certainly, a labor government, so the Bermuda Industrial Union, the Bermuda Credit Union, the BIU, the Bermuda Industrial Union, certainly was the investor, landlord, partner, kind of sister company to the, or even owner. I'm just not sure what the actual organizational structure, but certainly the Bermuda Co-op. That was our kind of first food co-op, if you will, some 20 years ago, which was in existence for 20 years. And so that was their early experience with the cooperative 20 years ago. And so it had, good success before the introduction and the expansion of the local grocery stores now, which is pretty much a monopoly with, with a food provider called the Marketplace. And we have a few gourmet stores as well and whatnot, but the Marketplace is a really chain that is the main grocery provider over the island. And so they have a kind of history and and a connection in that, and the co-op before it was closed, had long successful roots within a smaller store within a different part of the island. So kind of just keeping that history in mind, and just kind of keep in mind that the labor government, certainly looking to be able to expand economic, opportunities for Bermudians kind of wholesale, looks at the cooperative model, and probably quite rightly, as a vehicle, as a tool for Bermudians to avail themselves to be able to spread the economic wealth. Everything in Bermuda is quite expensive. If you're looking at a two-bedroom cottage, single story, on a little quarter acre of land, you could pay $400,000 or $500,000 and up. $400,000 to $500,000. Absolutely, yeah. And don't talk about if you want to be close to town and Paget, the parishes that I mentioned to you before that are close to Hamilton. It would be unlikely that you would find anything under $600,000-$700,000 for a nice, well-maintained Bermuda cottage on a quarter acre land. And so we're talking Hong Kong, New York prices in Bermuda. And so if you're looking at that and you say, well, look, a housing co-op per se done the right way has real value. And so, do I want to be able to, do I have that type of, wherewithal? And banks are going to require at least 20-30% down, depending on how you're going to go about it, and certainly age and all that kind of factors in. And do I have 20% of $400,000 or $500,000 to be able to, but could I, but do I have 5,000? Do I have 10,000 that I can be a part of something that I call my own? And I'm an investor, I'm an owner, and I got to say in kind of what happens within my whole development. And so, kind of spreading the economic pie, enabling Bermudians to be a part a greater participation in the whole economic wealth is certainly on their minds and a part of their whole mandate. So it's a real reason, and it's timely, for and then there are many retailers, and certainly in the island that if you don't make it at Christmas time and say, hey, that's my windfall for the year, I made 20, 30, 40 grand. It's worth it to me to be an entrepreneur, to kind of carry on my business. It could be a good reflection, and it could be timely for many retailers as well to say, hey, I can still be that. I can still be the the owner, the director, so to speak. I can still run my business in accordance with the whole democratic governance and whatnot, one worker, one vote, but I can still, whether it's a salary like 6-to-1, a Mondragon, or something different, I can design something that morphs my business into a different structure where I can still have that entrepreneurial freedom. Yes, it's a bit different in regards to, compensation and whatnot, but it's a model that I know can thrive and develop because I'm spreading my ownership, and I do have 1 or 2 employees that I love to be a part of my business in a more solid and a more sustainable way. So the co-op model could really work for me.
It could work. It could work for all of those reasons. And we're going to take our final break, and we have another 15 minutes when we get back. So we'll be right back and get a little bit more information of why co-ops work in Bermuda. We'll be right back. Information is power. That's why the National Cooperative Bank is sponsoring this program, to give you information about co-ops. The labor union, the Progressive Labor Union Party in Bermuda, has this information about co-ops, and that's why they're creating more and more co-ops to give the Bermudians, the everyday person, the ability to own a home, to pool their resources. They may not have $400,000 or $500,000 to buy this 2-bedroom flat cottage on a little piece of land. They may not have that $400,000, $500,000, $700,000, but if they have $10,000, $20,000, something that they can pool, get 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 people to pool their money together, then they can build some kind of multifamily event and own a part of it. Same thing with Mr. Spriggs was saying before we took a break. If there is somebody that has a retail store, they might be my age, Mr. Spriggs, and they want to sell their sell their business, and they can sell it to the employees.
Yeah, they can, and still be a part of it, And so those are just two branches. Just love to sell tree trunk branches. Those are just 2 branches on the possibilities, the opportunities within co-op development. Certainly on the island, we have virtually no co-ops, with the exception of the credit union, as I mentioned earlier. But whether it's retail, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's we can just go on and on. Energy, food. We have, for instance, Brennan, we have no bulk stores in which you can go in and lift that little plastic container up and take that plastic shovel and grains and rice and all sorts of kind of dry goods. We have nothing like that in the island. And so that might be, as far as a worker co-op from the ground up. Yeah, that supermarket where I got the produce and I got, meats and fish and all that, and 10, 12, 15, 20 snacks. That might be down the road a bit. But I can start something that just makes sense and fill a need and solve a problem. We're talking about transportation. We got 600, and I guess in the States you would call them gold medallions. Well, here it's just a taxi, permit. And it's a moratorium, yeah. So you can't get in unless you're buying somebody's permit. A permit is about $90,000.
90.
And that's $90,000, yeah. And that's not including the car. So if you don't want a nice little 8-seater Benz, because you got these Benz taxis, these little kind of big vans. You're going to pay $60,000-$70,000 for that, because the duty, everything's dutiable, yeah, customs duty. And so, it's pretty common, taxi and a used, taxi permit and a used car is going to run you $120,000, $130,000, $140,000. And so, but there's no, but the taxi industry has kind of resisted. It's just kind of, the leadership just hasn't been present to have a taxi maintenance garage. Just, tires, oil changes, all sorts of kind of, reusables and whatnot. A taxi gas station. And so all taxis are going to either go to, the two major gas stations, gas providers in the island. And, these are just kind of easy and not to mention, the whole kind of, purchasing co-ops that can create just new relationships and understandings, MOUs with the government and whatnot, and so these are all opportunities. So I just didn't want to kind of just leave it there as far as housing and whatnot, but huge opportunities on all types of co-ops around, worker purchasing, you name it.
So do you have farming? How do you get your food? Do you farm your own food or you bring it in?
Yeah. No, how it kind of works is obviously with supermarkets, most of the food is bought in. But from the produce side, you have generational farmers that have these plots of land. It could be a quarter acre, it could be half acre, acre on occasion here and there all around the island. And if it's a bumper time for carrots and whatnot, and then supermarkets will buy locally and be able to kind of bring in what else they need. And so that just kind of guarantees, on the ag side, that local produce has an unblocked highway for the food to the plate, to one's plate in Bermuda. But mostly, we have no exports, so to speak. Perhaps one of our more notable exports is Bermuda black rum. And that's by the Goslings family. They've been in the business, I believe, since the 1800s and whatnot. And we have a small, we have other small producers like, Horton's rum cakes, Otter Bridges sherry peppers. And these are kind of, just local manufacturers that do a fantastic job of exporting these little niche type products.
Well, because the reason I ask you about the farming is because they could create a marketing co-op, these different folks with the acre or quarter acre of land. And if they had a co-op where they had a group of people that could help them put value to whatever they're selling and then sell it to the market or sell it directly to the customer and the consumer or to the food co-op that may come up one day. And they find some ways there to do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite possible. It's just that, the island's a smaller game, right? And so so like, say one of our food producers, Amaral's Produce. And so that's a family business that, that pretty much, works the land. And many of these little small farms, Vernon, are going to have a little stand right by the road. So every Friday, Saturday, they're out. They, are picking, bagging, and coming right to Bermudians just drive by and say, yeah, give me that, a couple of heads of squash and this and that, lettuce and whatnot, and off they go. And then they got the relationship directly with the store. So they would be very resistant to any middle something that kind of dilutes 1 cent of the system that's been working for them for dozens of years,
I want to bring your attention to, when you talk about your training, the National Association of Housing Co-op has a publication called Cooperative Housing Journal.
Cooperative Housing Journal, yeah.
And one of my mentors in this world, a guy named Herb Fisher, he wrote an article called Why Housing Cooperatives Should Get Support Instead of Rental Housing. And there's a lot of reasons why, and you've mentioned the home ownership, but people do feel better when they belong to a co-op and they belong to a community and they have say so. They have say in what happens in that community. They create their own policies and procedures, and so they function a lot better. I don't know if the Bermudian government put money in making rental housing or any kind of funds, but we found that in the U.S., HUD and the U.S. government spends more money in rental housing than they do in co-op housing. But co-ops outperform rental housing in every aspect you can think of. Every aspect.
Well, that's great to know. We do have a Bermuda Housing Corporation that's similar to BEDC, our organization. They are a quango, quasi autonomous government organization. All that means is that we have power to elect our own boards, hire and fire, but we still got a government grant, so it's kind of like in and out. And so the Housing Corporation is really the entity that manages and owns a body of Bermuda real estate and rents 2 individuals that will qualify according to their mandate. And from time to time, they would actually sell part of their stock to Bermudians as well. But Vernon, I just want to hit real quick. I'm not sure how much time we have. I know it's coming
4 minutes.
down. Yeah. So we're so excited to be able to host the One Worker, One Vote and LKS collaborative. So that team, Michael Pack, Bill Generette, Carmen Huertas, Christian Barker, Iban Zugatsky, and Chris Cooper those 6 individuals are all coming down to Bermuda this Sunday. And so from Monday on, we'll be meeting, dialoguing, engaging, creating with a number of Bermuda stakeholders and our key kind of pylons throughout the industry and whatnot, as far as community, donors, investors, all sorts of, the main Bermuda kind of housing, all the individuals that I had mentioned there, as far as directives and all sorts of executive, to be able to kind of better understand Bermuda and to advise on how co-ops and their take is, because obviously they are all part of ecosystems in their various jurisdictions, to be able to get the best inputs from them to be able to assist us with our strategic development. And so we've got two great seminars planned with them, learning experiences on Tuesday, December 4th, and Wednesday the 5th. And they'll be meeting all sorts of wonderful people, and certainly in the likes of Dr. Manley, we'll be adding them to our partnering base to be able to continue to see how they can assist Bermuda in its development.
So they're coming down Monday, and I know most of the people you just talked about from the Cincinnati group.
That's
and
right.
Michael Peck from One Member, One Vote.
Mm-hmm.
So they're coming in on Monday, and then you're having seminars on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday, that's right.
Are they going to be there on Thursday?
Yeah, they will, and they leave on Friday. And so, we're talking about, Bermuda Community Foundation, the Center on Philanthropy, Bermuda Housing Corporation, Bermuda College. We've got a few foundations and kind of real key donors to be able to, because everyone's looking to say, hey, what's the value proposition? What's the impact? How can I make sure that my corporate dollar goes right to where it needs to go? And those are the conversations that we're going to be having. What's going to create the biggest impact? And certainly to be able to kind of sell and share the cooperative value proposition. All the unions, Bermuda Industrial Union, Bermuda Credit Union, and whatnot. And so, we're excited about that in regards to engaging them on our next level. And so, and just real quick, we're also speaking with Jessica Gordon-Nembhard. And so on my way, kind of going to comments to various training over the last year, I read her book.
Did you?
Collective Courage. I did.
Yes.
And I was so inspired, and I was like, wow, she's talking to all these fantastic, cooperatives, these early black cooperatives in the South. And it got me thinking, we've got our own stories here. And that's when I went back to the largest and friendly societies and said, hey, you guys and ladies have never shared your economic story. Bermudians don't know about how these fantastic buildings and these assets in Bermuda came to be. I said, our executive now within these lodges are basically stewards, doing a great job, but they're stewards. They didn't put brick, brick, and they didn't, wheel that wheelbarrow and
William,
kind of work together.
William, I've got to go, and I want to get you on again, because you got excited and I got excited listening to you about this history. But we'll get you back on again. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much.
Ryan. Listening audience, thank you.
All right, and everybody out there, we'll see you next Thursday, and live cooperatively. Thank you.